confirm your applause. Are you ready?
Yes.
Good afternoon and welcome to Leaders with Visions.
They can't hear you.
District Congressional Forum.
They can't hear you.
No. Give me 1 second.
That's it.
That's all.
That's it.
Yes, that's it.
It's on?
Yes.
Got it? Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to Leaders with Visions 6th District Congressional Candidate Forum. We're pleased to say that 7 other candidates have qualified and all are in attendance. First, I'm going to introduce the very distinguished panel of journalists that have agreed to question our candidates. Starting on the far right. I always get confused with station lists like that. Jim Inkster, president of Louisiana Network, and Jim. Next we have Fernando, and I got to do that, he was terribly, Zeluda Suarez, and she represents the students and the ladies' point of view. Mr. Carl Redmond is the retired executive editor of the Advocate and really understands the issues within Congressional 6. And Rob Krieger, who is from our partner in this program, Channel 2/Channel 19, will be asking questions. And now we're going to go to the candidates. They each have 30 seconds to introduce themselves, and they will start with candidate number 1. And these positions were done by drawing at 11:30. Please, Mr. Edwards, would you please stand and give us your 30 seconds?
I'm your timekeeper, so pay attention. I will talk about it.
I'm married, I know how to pay. Republican Mike. Got it? I got it. As a candidate, I agreed to appear here today to answer questions, and I will do that. As one who has lost his own mother, and I know the pain, I'm going to waive my introductory remarks and ask that you join me for a moment in extending our sympathies and condolences to Senator Clayton and his family. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Trey Thomas, and from Congress, Louisiana 6th District. I want to extend my condolences to the Clayton family. My platform is based on 3 E's: education, entrepreneurship, and energy. I have a personal connection to each one of these E's: education as a former educator and also a doctorate in education, as an entrepreneur, small business consultant, and then also my father recently retired from the energy sector, so I'm very passionate about the jobs that Louisiana citizens embrace to raise their families here in Louisiana. So I appreciate your vote. Please visit my website, www.drtreythomas.com.
Hello, my name is Dan Clater. I am not a fraud. I am here to honor my mother and have a good discussion about this seat. I look forward to being with you. I appreciate what you've said, Governor Edwards and other candidates. Thank you very much.
My name is Paul Dietzel. I'm a technology entrepreneur and founder of Antidote, a software company that's used by thousands across the country every day. We've been successful not because of the government, but in spite of the government. I've talked to many people across our district, thousands, and Most of them want to see all the people that have government experience not re-elected. They want to see business people elected. I'm pro-life, pro-traditional marriage, I'm pro-gun, pro-constitution, and I'm a businessman. I'm asking for you to send me economists.
My name is Craig McCullough. Again, I would like to offer my condolences to Dan. I went through that with my father about 5 years ago, and I know what he's going through. I'm a 30-year small business owner, physical therapist. I grew up in Baker, small town guy. I love small towns. I'll push hard for small towns in Congress. And again, I would just like to say I'm here to answer any questions you might have, and I look forward to talking to you in the future. You can see a video at McCulloughforCongress.com. Asking for you both. Thank you.
I'm Rufus Craig. I'd like to thank Ms. Armstrong and Ms. Forum for having me here today. My condolences to Dan. I'm a Libertarian candidate for Congress. We are a small grassroots party. We're trying to offer the people of this state and the nation an alternative to the two-party system that we're currently struggling under. I think everyone here has problems with the way that the Democrats and Republicans have been conducting their business in Washington. I'd like you to consider the Libertarian candidate and vote on November 4th. Thank you.
My name is Garrett Graves. I just want to offer God's warmth, His peace, and His love to the Cleveland family during this difficult time. From Baton Rouge, I look forward to the opportunity to answer questions in the debate. Thank you.
As a representative of Youth with Vision and also of the Baton Rouge community, and you have our deepest condolences. Your family did so much to our community. And now we'll start with Jonas 1, Joe Meester. 1 minute answers.
The incumbent congressman of the 6th district, has backed the Grover Norquist pledge for no new taxes at any time now or in the future. He signed the pledge. Would you be in accord with the stance taken by Congressman Cassidy, or would you be amenable to taxes under certain circumstances?
Governor Edwards?
Well, no one likes to see us taxes. I'm certainly not. But I am believing in government serving people and accomplishing things. And that requires taxes. So to the extent that it might be necessary and have a valuable outcome, I would be interested in talking to it and looking at it. But I'm not going to run for Congress or any other office on a pledge of raising taxes. That really don't give you much chance to get there and not raising I'm going to say, I'm not going to close the door. I'm going to keep an open mind, but you can count on me not to do it unless it's absolutely necessary.
Thank you. Right?
I actually am a proud signer of the pledge to not raise taxes. And the reason I signed that pledge is because I believe we don't have a revenue problem, I believe we have a spending problem. And when I consider the future of our country for my 4 daughters, that I want to make sure they inherit a fiscally sustainable country, we do have to rein in our spending. We can't just keep expecting to raise debt or raise taxes when many people aren't in a position to absorb those taxes. For instance, myself, I'm trying to raise my daughters. The tax with the Affordable Care Act hurt me as a father trying to raise my daughters in our health care. So my concern is not to keep looking at how we raise revenues, but we do have to look at where we spend, our priority in spending, and make sure we keep spending under control and find those ways to reduce before always looking to raise revenue.
Hello. Works better when it's on. Hello. Hello. Hello, there we go. Now we're fired. Hi, again, great to be here. I appreciate it. No new taxes. If you've been paying attention at all to what my platform has been, I've been saying that Washington has been ruined by those that have access to the power brokers. that the whole scheme is set up that those at the top have all the loopholes, have all the access, have all the things that work for them, but those in the middle are getting crushed. So I am for fewer, fairer, flatter taxes. I am for a stimulated economy that results in more taxpayers. Thank you.
Paul Diesel, again, like Trey, I actually signed the pledge. I don't think that our country has a problem with taxing our people. I think we have a problem with fraud, duplication, errors that are made by clerical errors and things like that. And so I think that we need to get the fraud under control. We need to make sure that everyone is paying their fair share of taxes and close the loopholes because this is about all Americans. All Americans are feeling the pain of a burdensome government. And it's going to take all of us to fight together for our future.
Craig McCullough, I actually signed the pledge also. I'm a 30-year small business owner. I see we're doing a small business. We need to, just like everybody else, we need to cut spending, not raise taxes. I'm seeing regulations in my physical therapy practice daily. They're going up, taxes are going up, and it's putting a hard time on small businesses and families alike. So yeah, I will pledge to not raise any taxes at this time. Thank you.
You know, incumbent in the pledge is that they're perfectly happy with the tax codes as it currently exists. There are about $1 trillion in what they refer to as tax expenditures built into the tax code as we currently deal with it. I'm in favor of dramatically rewriting the tax code, have a fair tax, a flatter tax, a tax where it has a larger base of people paying taxes. So we quit spending money in the tax code. We also have to quit spending money on the expenditure side. They spend too much money in Washington. They give too much money away to special interests in the tax code. Both of those problems need to be addressed.
Thank you. I'm Garrett Graves. We have problems on both sides. We have problems on the tax side, and we have problems on the spending side. Both of them need to be fixed. On the tax side, we have a problem in that the tax code is way too complex. There are loopholes. There are special interests that have special carve-outs within the tax code. We need to have a fair, simpler, flatter tax code. That is something that's critically important. We also need to be working to broaden the base. We have too many people that are dependent upon government rather than contributing to your community, being employed and helping contribute to your family. We need to address those issues. On the spending side, the federal government spending is out of control. I worked on a project in Terrebonne Parish in Louisiana where the Corps of Engineers spent $72 million over a 20-plus year period studying a project for hurricane protection. During that same period of time, FEMA paid out nearly $1 billion in flood claims on a project that was estimated to cost $586 million to prevent the flood claims. We have a spending problem.
Yes or no?
I'd be clear that we don't need to raise taxes. We need to reduce spending.
Next question comes from Ms. Suarez, and the answers will be 30 seconds, starting with Trey.
So the national average shows that women make 77 cents for every dollar that a man makes. How do you plan on combating this problem and ensuring equal pay for equal work?
Well, first, I believe any woman that does the same job, especially a better job than a man, should be paid the same, if not more. So the issue to me is definitely an ethical issue that anyone that would consciously pay someone less because of their gender, it should be addressed. But again, being an ethical issue, I don't believe the government has the ability and can efficiently regulate that, especially in private transactions. You're talking about the government now trying to regulate every private contract between individuals. I don't think the government can do that. So my stance on it is I definitely disagree with that ethically, but again, practically, I don't think the government can do it.
My mother was a nurse, raised her boys, went back to school, got a master's degree in nursing, and she made more money than all the male nurses, and there are a lot of them that were on her ward. So I think it's a function of education, and that we have some issues about pay and education. I am for fairness completely, but I don't think that you accomplish it by interjecting government regulation into it. So I'm a free market not a person, and I don't think it's anything to do with this alleged war on women. I think that, and I think I'm out of time.
As a business owner that has hired men and women, I believe that everyone, no matter who you are, no matter your gender, no matter anything else about you, that your hard work should be rewarded with good pay. And so I think that everyone needs to have the same opportunities to make the same amount of money, but I do not think that the government should be the regulator of that. I think that private businesses need to be the ones that decide that.
In my physical therapy practice, I'm surrounded by women, actually. You know, they get paid the same thing. They get paid for what they do. You know, we're a private business. The government should stay out of regulating small business like that, or large business for that matter. But we need to it's all according to education. You know, how hard they work. I mean, that's what we get paid for, and that's what I'll continue to do. Thank you.
I think women absolutely have a right to be paid the same as men. I'm not sure the government should get involved in it. I think women should get involved in it. Y'all make up over 52% of the voting block in this election. You are a huge component of the consumer society. Y'all need to stand up and make a change. The government's not going to do it for you. Women should do it at the grocery store, at the department store, and at the ballot box.
Discriminating is unacceptable. And anyone who's qualified for a job or performing in a job should be paid in accordance with what they're delivering for that business, what they're delivering for that company. It should be paid according to their work product. The great thing about this country is that the harder you work, the more you work, the more opportunity you have to succeed. I don't know what the statistics say in detail, but I'll tell you, in the office where I work, we actually, I'm thinking back now, we paid the women more than we paid the guys that had similar credentials. And it was all about the output that those people delivered rather than having anything to do with the sex.
The question is equal pay for equal work? Well, of course. When government stays out of things, we wouldn't have any child labor law. We wouldn't have any safety in the workplace. We would have chaos and anarchy. My point is, this is one area where the government needs to step in and say, hey fellas, let's be fair about this. This lady works as hard as the guy next to her, and she ought to get the same amount of pay. More so probably because most of them are wage earners that take care of their children, and that's a government responsibility.
Craig, you have 30 seconds, and your answers must be 30 seconds, to ask a question of everyone on the panel, one by one. And it has to be the same question. Would you please rise and ask your question?
My question for the panel is, the way that congressional districts are configured in America today, they seem they are gerrymandered to ensure the election and re-election of either a Republican or a Democrat incumbent to Congress. Please explain to me how that's good for the democratic process.
We'll start with Dana.
That's not good for the democratic process, is the answer to that. It's drawn in such a way that Republicans don't have to respond to Democrats, and Democrats don't have to respond to Republicans, and that's what you see in Washington. So, answer, it's not good.
Thank you. Paul?
I agree that it's not good for democracy, and I believe that we have another opportunity, the state legislature does in another few years, to redraw those lines, and I think we, the people of Louisiana and the people across the country, need to advocate for making equal districts and fair districts that are not based on partisan politics.
I agree totally also that it's not fair. I grew up in Baker, Louisiana. My office is in Baker, and the city of Baker is split right down the middle, District 6 and District 2. The mayor comes to me all the time and complains about he can't get in touch with this congressman. He said, Congressman Cassidy always calls him back, but the one in District 2, which is across the tracks, actually, he has problems with that. You can't get in touch with him half the time. So it's not fair, and I would totally support, redistricting like that.
What the legislature did in this district is absolutely a disservice to the public. The number of times that we've had to go in to communities sitting there talking with people, and they're like, well, I live on this street, am I in your district or not? You literally have to zoom down. You have the left side of the street, one congressional district, the right side of the street, the other congressional district. It's a disservice. Those people have similar issues. The legislature made a flaw here, and we should not be creating legislative districts or congressional districts based on party. We need to have them based on allegiance, based on geography. Thank you.
Gerrymandering is not only unlawful, it's unfair. However, you Republicans and conservatives should not complain about this district. Everybody knows it's heavily conservative. I'm the fellow who might be disadvantaged. But my answer to the question is very simple. Voters vote. They can go to the polls and vote for whoever's on the ballot. And if they choose the wrong one, shame on them. We're giving them an opportunity, all of us, to pick someone that they're choosing, and I think whoever goes to Washington, regardless of what the district is outlined, will do the job.
I believe gerrymandering definitely undermines the Hershey democratic process, and primarily from a cultural standpoint, or even a personal standpoint, that you put labels on folks instead of reaching folks on their issues and concerns. I definitely have been able to cut across whatever labels people want to put on you and look at who's the best person to address the concerns I have, who's offering solutions to address the issues that I face. And when you give people the opportunity to vote for candidates that are able to articulate those abilities and those connections, that's where the democratic process should work, and not based on the label that you put on someone so they will or won't vote according to trends.
Thank you. I now call Redmond, and he will ask a question with a 1-minute response.
The Republican mantra this election season seems to be repeal Obamacare. The Casey Foundation, or the Kaiser Foundation estimates that over 100,000 people in Louisiana have gotten health insurance through the health exchange. 13,300 of those people are in the 6th district, according to the U.S. House of Representatives website. If the Republicans were to repeal Obamacare, what are you going to tell those 13,300 constituents about where and how they should get health coverage?
Okay, we'll start with Dan Clayton.
Louisiana is not like the rest of the states. They're not. I guess it's humorous out there, but they're not. We have a system where we take care of the indigent population. I have been in the hospital the last 5 days. My mother's laid in the bed next to indigent families. We're all in there together. All of us receiving treatment. All of us suffering through the same thing. So it's not quite the same, but I would have a system that would go more along the line of the Republican study. I believe that there are things that need to be done. We're all passionate people and we want people to get the services that they need, but Obamacare is not the answer. It's more governmental regulation that squeezes the rest of us and discourages growth. So looks like I'm out. Thank you for the question, Carl.
Every time I'm asked a question on Obamacare, I think about a young boy, 7th grader in Maryland, Diamante, and the fact that he died not because of a toothache. He died because he was actually run through the government bureaucracy of healthcare. He didn't die because he was uninsured. He died because he was actually insured, but by the government. And he was actually on Medicaid. We have to cut back on the fraud, we have to cut back on the duplication, and we have to make sure that the money goes to the people that need it. You look at disability, there is 14 million people on disability. There's lawyers out there that say, look, if you come to me, we will help you get on disability, basically, even if you don't need it. I was knocking on doors the other day and met a mom whose son is on disability and said, we can just get rid of all the fraud and my son can get what he needs. So I'm going to be fighting for the people of Washington.
I'm the only one in this field that's in the healthcare business. And I've worked in the hospital for 7 years before I opened my practice. And I know people don't get turned away at the door. You know, they get healthcare. We have Medicaid. They will get services. You know, we need to replace Obamacare. We're going to replace Obamacare with common sense principles that put the patient and their healthcare provider first, not the government first. Selling across state lines will increase competition, increase the product that the insurance companies offer, allowing people to take their insurance coverage with them when they change jobs, incentivizing healthcare savings accounts that put patients and their healthcare dollars, put them in control of their healthcare dollars. You know, so no, they won't get turned away. They will get coverage, you know, through compassion, hospitals, that sort of thing in the state of Louisiana. Thank you.
Repealing Obamacare is a great soundbite of a commercial. Everyone up here that said it knows that they aren't going to be able to do it. As long as Mr. Obama is president, it's not going to get through Congress. I have a problem with Obamacare, but it goes deeper than the fact that it's a new health care program proposed by the government. The health care system in this country is broken. We spend too much money for health care in the private sector and the public sector. What we need to be having is a meaningful conversation about, one, is everybody entitled to health care? And so, how can we make it affordable? Medicare is going to bankrupt America. We need to have congressmen that are willing to go to Washington, D.C. and start a meaningful conversation about how we're going to reform health care in America so we can afford it. It's too expensive. If we keep on the same path we're going with Obamacare, private health care, Medicare, Medicaid, this nation will go bankrupt. What we need is a true conversation about how to fix how much we spend on health care in this country.
Carl, thank you. It's a great question because a lot of us do talk about the concern about Obamacare. But let me get to that. I think the reason that a lot of us talk about it is because the experience that I've had out on the campaign trail, going around these 13 parishes, knocking on doors, calling people, going to fairs and festivals. The number one complaint, concern that is brought up, without exception, is opposition to Obamacare. As a representative, I take that very seriously. You're supposed to be representing the constituents that are in these 13 parishes. It's the top thing. One former classmate that I ran into on the campaign trail told me that his rates went from $435 a month to over $1,200 a month under Obamacare. That's a huge concern. I believe he told me he has 2 children. Secondly, and this is an important distinction, access to insurance doesn't mean access to care, and I think that's really important. What we need to be doing is we need to be improving the relationship between the doctor and the patient. We need to be allowing more visibility or transparency in the process to where the doctor can provide the best care for the patient. Thank you.
All of us together are not going to repeal Obamacare. What we need to do is deal with it. Work with the good provisions, and there are many, as has been said here. Do what we can to remove the bad ones, and there are many there also. I'm not interested so much in the 13,000 people who may be affected because it's not going to happen. But I am interested in the 250,000 people who do not get coverage because our governor will not sign a piece of paper expanding Medicaid under the bill. And you have children, unemployed people, underemployed people, and senior citizens of fixed income having to worry about what they're going to do if they get sick or need a doctor. I want you to know that whatever I can do to help people in all walks of life to get medical attention, because life is miserable when you can't look to the fact that you can get some relief if something happens to you.
Healthcare is a service provided by professionals. Those professionals earn a living providing that service. And if those professionals are able to keep those costs low in providing that service, then the customers who hopefully have more money in their pockets can then afford their service better. So the affordability of healthcare is not a factor of a tax that takes more money from folks who was assumed or are assumed to be able to pay more and give it to others who can't afford it, is how do we help providers keep their costs low, and how do we find other ways to increase the money in a customer's pocket. And that goes to our economic situation, and then also goes to how much the government is taking out of our pockets. And as a person who faced this increase in all health care for myself, my wife, my 4 daughters, I'm not in that pool of folks who are so wealthy that they can easily absorb that tax increase to help other folks. And again, it's not an uncompassionate or less compassionate stance. It's just reality that the way to make something more affordable is not assuming other folks are out there and lumping a lot of folks in that pool that aren't able to absorb those increases.
Thank you. Next question will come from Jim Inkster. It's a rapid fire round of 15 seconds. And that will start with Paul Beasley.
In the U.S. Senate election, incumbent Mary Landrieu has said she is against the legalization of medicinal marijuana, while the challenger, Congressman Cassidy, says he is in favor of medicinal marijuana. Are you more supportive of Senator Landrieu or Congressman Cassidy?
In favor. I'm sorry, no Cassidy. In favor of legalizing medicinal marijuana.
I'm also in favor of legalizing medicinal marijuana, but we need to regulate that because I'm seeing, it would scare me to death for being sold, out of the back of a pickup truck or whatever like that. I mean, I just, when you can really regulate something like that.
I'm glad to see these gentlemen on board with the position the Libertarian Party's been taking for over 40 years. Marijuana's been legalized in 27 states. It's coming. It's got great medicinal qualities. I think we should get it done in Louisiana now.
I've spoken to researchers and indicated that the chemical component of marijuana, which is called THC, that actually provides the relief, is extractable and available in pill form. It would seem that would be a better solution.
Medical marijuana should be available to anybody who can get relief from it or even thinks he or she can get relief from it. Being in pain is horrible. And if a doctor prescribed it, well, so be it. My point is this. Look, that's one of the few sins that I've never been accused of. I believe that when people are sick and in trouble, they need help, period.
I'm in favor of using all of our resources and technologies available to provide medicine that can provide relief to any illnesses we face, and whether that's the actual marijuana itself or the chemicals that can be extracted and used in some innovative way to provide the relief by which to do it, but also again to prevent the recreational abuse of it as well.
Okay, our next question comes from, I'm sorry, I didn't do that.
Oh, that's all right. Marijuana makes me forget. I saw the state of Louisiana's framework for this. It looked just like riverboat gaming license, and I voted against that, and that it was a real problem with the way that you make it happen. So I am opposed to the framework that we have in Louisiana last session. Voted against it.
Thank you, Dan. My apologies. From on, would you please ask the next question? And candidates, you have 1 minute to answer.
The Washington Post recently reported that 48% of Louisiana students graduate with about an average of $22,789 in student debt. Student debt seems to be a rising problem in national headlines everywhere. What can you guys do to relieve this problem here in Louisiana?
First of all, we need to get the federal government out of the way as far as education is concerned. We need to increase funding to higher education. I like that part of it. But I also think we need to bring in trade schools, that sort of thing. We have a program up north in Ethel to where a trade school, businesses have combined with trade schools or industrial schools, and it's taking off up there. We're having people provided with jobs, that sort of thing, and we need to continue stuff like that. Thank you.
The cost of education has gone up substantially. I have to say, when I was in law school, tuition was $300 a semester. That was something reasonably affordable. We need to figure out how to bring the cost down so that young people can go to college and not be saddled with huge debts. One of the problems that I see is that currently the debt that they're incurring is carrying substantial interest rates, which can make the debt go on for a lot longer than it should. We should make money available at 0 or 1% interest. There should be work programs available in schools. And we need to make higher education, trade schools, and things of that nature available to everyone. We have a workforce in this country that's rapidly falling behind the rest of the industrialized world. But student debt is a big problem. A lot of it's owed to the federal government. If I were the congressman, I would propose bills or vote for bills that would grant an amnesty similar to what we had in Louisiana for taxes recently, and let these kids get out from under that student loan debt.
Thank you. Two things. First of all, we need to be ensuring that we have robust employment opportunities available in Louisiana for the students once they get out of school, giving them an opportunity to earn the income to pay off their education. And Louisiana's blessed with our abundant natural resources. We have strategic advantages over the rest of the country, which is why we've landed tens of billions of dollars in huge economic development projects. Secondly, something else we need to do right here in Baton Rouge. We need to improve the integration of our colleges and universities in with the business community in Louisiana. Here's an example. If we integrate the experience for the students, integrating them with the businesses right here in Baton Rouge, right here in South Louisiana, you give them an opportunity to get experiential education and actually do the jobs that they're trained to do. Secondly, you develop income to offset the cost of their education. We need to be integrated. It's a win-win for Louisiana and for the students.
Cuts to higher education recently have caused an extra burden on universities, which is translated into higher tuition rates for students. Student loans are very important. These are people who want to get an education, will work, and the result of their productivity paying taxes will more than compensate for the cost. I'm for doing whatever we can, including reducing the interest rate to 0 at the maximum 1%, and providing that loans should not be repaid except out of a portion of earned income once they graduate. I just think we need to do everything we can to make it possible for people to get as good an education as they can. Thank you.
Very similar to the solutions based on the healthcare system, I believe the education system solutions have market principles of folks who are providing the service and customers who are paying for that service. So everything we can do to help reduce tuition and keep those costs low on the service providing end, we can look at those solutions. And then everything that we can do to make sure that students graduate and can earn the income, have more money in their pockets to pay back those loans, is what we as potential or hopeful congressmen should be paying attention to. Again, I have student loans for my doctorate. Thank God I was able to get my master's first master on academic scholarship, but I'm facing the same situation, and I accept the responsibility of paying it back. But again, what I would look for are the economic opportunities, and whatever my elected officials can do to help increase my economic opportunities, pay back that responsibility is what I look to them for, and not just absolve me from the responsibility that I signed up for.
Thank you. The question is, what would you do? I'm going to change this a little bit. Is what have I done? I've worked very hard for TOPS, and as Governor Edwards has spoken about, to some degree, I've fought all the cuts that we've had to higher education. We've cut higher education by $600 million over this administration. and I fought them every step of the way. And by the way, when you go out to vote on the constitutional amendments, I suggest that you vote against 1 and 2 because you're putting higher education in a box when you do that. So I have fought hard for higher education. I've fought hard for students that have merit opportunities to get there. So in Louisiana, we're doing a great job, but like in Common Core, when we have 15% of the money dictating 85% of where we go, I think that we should look closer at block grants to higher ed and the federal government stay out of the way and let the people of Louisiana educate the children the way they want to. Thank you.
The question was about student loans and the crippling effect it has on students, and what I would do as a congressman. Well, I'll tell you, why is college increasing in cost? It's because since '93, basically over the past 20 years, the number of administrators on college campuses has increased at double the rate of teachers and research faculty. And students has actually increased at a lower rate than teachers and researchers. So one of the things that I would actually do is advocate for reducing the number of administrators so that we spend more money on actually educating and less money on bureaucracy. Another thing is supporting things like PAYE, the pay as you earn program, to get students on their feet and out into the job market quickly and get them into their careers. Talking about jobs, we actually have we have a boom going on in Louisiana over the next few years. There's a lot of opportunities for high-skilled construction workers. There's a lot of opportunities for welders. And I think the point that we need to make is that not everyone has to go to college. We have plenty of opportunities for our students to go out and get jobs right after high school as well.
The next person is to be asked by Paul Russell. You have the question, the 30-second answers, and the question first.
No, this is going to be a great question.
Okay, a bit of background really quick. Dan, and this is for you. So the environmental defense...
Excuse me, this question will be asked of each of the members.
Okay, no, that's fine, but I'm going to ask it to Dan. But everybody else answer it, please. A bit of background. The Environmental Defense Action Fund is a multi-candidate PAC and super PAC. It operates as an arm of the Environmental Defense Fund. This organization has made independent expenditures of more than $645,000 against Joni Ernst for U.S. Senate in Iowa, $400,000 against conservative Cory Gardner in U.S. Senate in Colorado, $400,000 against Republican Terry Lynn, who's running U.S. Senate in Michigan, $400,000 against Republican Tom Tillis, U.S. Senate in North Carolina, and it also donated $5,000 to Mary Lander and to Garrett Graves. In addition, this organization has made an independent expenditure of more than $120,000 in support of Garrett Graves. Do you believe that an organization so entrenched with the Democrat Party and the liberal establishment, such as the Environmental Defense Fund, based on what you now know, Dan, do you believe that an organization like that would spend so much money in support of a conservative?
My answer is no, that I do not believe that an organization that sounds like Harry Reid's PAC would spend that amount of money for a conservative, and that I don't believe Harry Reid is a conservative. I do also think that this dark money that invades our states, where we don't know who is supporting who, ought to be completely transparent, and we ought to know who this money comes from. Thank you.
Well, my first concern is definitely the transparency that needs to be in place so that voters can be informed, educated, and make their own decisions in terms of the values that they want in a candidate and the values that those organizations embrace, and whether or not they match with the candidate that they want to get behind and support.
It's not unusual for people to give the number of candidates with conflicting views. I don't have any problem with that as long as Senator Clayton said we know where the money is coming from. I'm gonna answer your question with a question of my own. How do I get in touch with those people?
Thank you very much. Governor, that was well done. Look, number one, Governor Romer's chief of staff is actually the guy that heads up, Governor Romer's former chief of staff, is the guy that heads up the wetlands program, the coastal program for environmental defense, a Republican. Secondly, our campaign has received contributions from COCA. We've received contributions from Occidental. We've received contributions from Murphy. We've received contributions from Marathon. We've received contributions from Shell. Companies that are very involved in energy, in oil and gas activity. Now, the thing I would say to you, number one, I would prefer if we all sit here and help the viewers understand why we're better candidates, rather than trying to diminish the others. I think it's impressive that the work that I did on the coast working with the oil and gas industry was attractive to such a diverse group of folks. Thank you.
I'm not sure if the question's about the environment or about money. Currently, there's too much money in politics that comes from sources we don't know. Anybody's been watching TV sees Citizens United type advertising for Crossroads GPS and this environmental group. We need transparency in political contributions. If a man is going to receive $100,000 from a particular individual or group, if we know who he's getting his money from, we kind of know who's giving him his marching orders. On the issue of the environment, one of the fundamental principles of the Libertarian Party,
I'm not a big fan of super PACs or PACs for that matter. I put up the majority of my money for my campaign, my wife and I did, because we believe in this country, we believe what we stand for. We've had small contributions from individuals, $25, $50, $100 contributions. That's what we're into. We're not beholden to anybody. You know, we believe in this country, and that's why I'm in this race, and that's why I put up a lot of my own money for it.
Okay, next question, Paul Redmond.
What do you think about the current strategy for engaging ISIS? Under what, if any circumstances, would you support putting American troops on the ground in Syria, Iraq, or elsewhere directly to fight ISIS?
Whatever it takes. I don't think any of us have the knowledge about what to do about ISIS, but it is a threat, it's a problem, and I applaud any effort by the government to stop them dead in that track where they are. They're one of 41 or 42 terrorist groups bent on destroying our country and killing us where they can, and I'm for doing whatever we have to do, including boots on the ground, to stop them where they are.
I definitely support that in defense of our country, we should take no options off the table. So that's my first concern in terms of that strategic approach that we were announcing, what we will and will not do to potential enemies, and not maintaining the ability to use all of our options to defend our country. There are some other practical steps that were made that put us in a weaker position. One, in terms of funding, the suppressors that have continually increased military funding that has put our military in a new state. That decreases our ability to defend our country.
My father served in the Navy, and my granddad taught me early on that if you're going to get in a brawl with somebody, it's better to take it to them first than to wait for them to take it to you. So I am for whatever it takes. These terrorists is the nicest word that I can think for them, are out to kill us, and they are out to kill our friend. And I would encourage Canada to stand strong, that they've been a friend of ours, and that they're taking a leg for us, and that we ought to band together and take it to these guys. Thank you.
I'm in favor of taking any action necessary to destroy ISIS. Also making sure that we don't make the same mistakes we've made in the past. Absent a clear objective, war can become a never-ending enterprise, and we have to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes that have been made over recent years.
When we pulled our troops out of Iraq and brought them home, ISIS started gathering steam. You know, that was a mistake to begin with, to do that. We needed to leave troops there to prevent this. But whatever it takes, you know, we've done airstrikes. If we have to put boots on the ground, I would be all for that. But we need to just wipe them out. Thank you.
The errors of America's intervention in other nations' policies, internal policies. We've been intervening in other nations for as long as I've been alive. Tens of thousands dead Americans, millions of dead foreign people, and to my knowledge, we have not accomplished little of any of the policies that we set out to do. We can't bomb our way out of the problem that we bombed our way into. We need to get out of the Middle East and let those folks straighten their own business.
Think about a scenario where LSU were going into a football game and they say, Les Miles says before the game, we're only going to run the ball, no passes. The other team is obviously going to prepare their defense for that type of play, for those types of plays. You don't go into battle taking things off the table. This is all about the element of surprise. These people would kill us at a moment's notice, and they'll either do it here or they'll try and do it there. We need to take the battle to them. We need to absolutely keep all options on the table. I spent over 10 years working defense policy. We were endorsed this week by admirals, generals, captains, colonels, commanders, and other military leaders.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Rob Krieger, and it may respond with a one-minute answer. And it starts with Trey.
All right, gentlemen. A large.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. I am sorry. I cut off the governor. Please, he gets his 30 seconds. I thought he had his 30. You're looking, no. Okay, go back to Rob. Rob, 1 minute. I just want to make sure I give everybody their time.
No problem. All right, gentlemen. A large portion of the 6th district is at risk, at flood risk, from need flood protection. Critical infrastructure like the Comey River diversion is still in dire need of billions of dollars in federal funding and years behind. How would you ensure your constituents get the flood protection that they deserve?
Trey?
Of course, that's, the first part is to be aware of those concerns and make sure we fight those concerns. And when we talk about prioritizing our spending, our critical infrastructure, when we are fighting for those federal dollars that we go to these infrastructure projects, that's where our priority should be and what we're fighting for. And the overall concern in terms of flood insurance and those solutions to make sure that we can protect citizens who are residing in those types of areas. I'm very satisfied with the work we've done to ensure that those measures are in place. And again, it's just continuing to make sure that we don't allow other things to be prioritized other than those infrastructure concerns.
Flood protection, huge issue, hadn't gone much of anywhere, and it also goes hand in glove with the issue of flood insurance and the issues that we're going to do on that. On the flood insurance issues, I'm finding people with this mandate that we've taken to extend the program are not going to be able to sell their homes. So people that have made a huge investment in their homes and look to be able to pass on their wealth to their children or sell their house and retire are being hamstrung by that. But all of that involves building a coalition to make it important. And so as far as building that coalition, we're in a position of strength now in Louisiana with Scalise there, and I think you could build a coalition to address that issue, and it's not just a Louisiana problem. Others have these flooding issues and will understand. So, thank you for the question.
One of the biggest problems with the Comey diversion project, a project that's actually been circling around in bureaucracy since before I was even born, is bureaucracy. And I think one of the things that we need is we need somebody from the private sector that knows how to get things done, knows how to cut through red tape, to go up there and not be beholden to any group or any special interest, but to be serving our people. The government takes so much money from us, and the more that we give, the more that they want to take. And what they do, they don't even do it well. So I think it's time that we cut back on a lot of the bureaucracy in Washington. I think that'll help us get a lot more projects done.
I'm in agreement with Paul on that. We need to get the federal government out of it. Unelected bureaucrats that are controlling the Comey Diversion Canal. You know, a few years back when I built my office in Baker, I didn't have flood insurance. The first year I was there, it went up to like $2,000. So that's where we're coming from. You know, we need to get the government out of it. The unelected bureaucrats are controlling everything. Let the private sector take over.
I've had the pleasure of living next to the Amite River for about 30 years now. As I say, sometimes I live next to it, sometimes I live in it. But I was smart enough to know that the river rises from time to time, so I put my house up on piers. It's underneath my house, but it does not get in my house. I think if people want to build properties in flood-prone areas, they need to understand what they're doing and be responsible for what they're constructing. The idea that you can build a house on the seashore and you know a hurricane's coming, but you shouldn't have to pay insurance with the knowledge that you put yourself in a risky position is wrong. I think that if people want to build in a flood zone, if they want to build on the beach, they need to accept responsibility for the fact of where they're building their property.
Thank you. You know, you can't represent what you don't know, and this is a perfect example. Rob, the outstanding cost of this project is probably closer to about $250 million rather than billions. This project is an example of an absolute mess. The cost-benefit ratio in this project is in a situation where the White House Budget Office will not fund this project in the president's budget. So what needs to happen is the state needs to send a letter saying that they would waive the cost share, saying that they would actually pay higher than the traditional cost share in this case, which would normally be, well, according to this budget, be 25-75 cost share. Secondly, what we've got to do is we've got to get the Corps of Engineers and some of these agencies out of this process. You can look at this project as an example where if you properly build this project, you will actually save federal taxpayer dollars if you build it. I'm the only person here with experience taking projects from the federal government, building them for a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the time. Thank you.
The project started during my administration. Not quite before you were born, but almost. It got bogged down with objections from landowners and local government officials who got concerned about the effects. And it drug on for years and years. I came and went, but the project is still unfulfilled. It needs to be done because I think it's very important. And I will do whatever I can on a congressional level to help do that. Final thing, when the East Coast of the country, or the West Coast in California, or the hills of California are destroyed by fire, the federal government rushes in to help wherever and whenever possible. They don't send the bill to the poor people who got hurt by the occasion, like they did to us with the flood insurance increase. That needs to be modified. I'm going to join with others who are already working on that problem to get it adjusted.
Thank you. The next question comes from Dan Clayton, and to be asked of all of the candidates, and your response is 30 seconds. Dan? Who answers it first? Start with Paul.
Okay. According to my research, Evans Graves Engineering has collected more than $150 million in contracts with the state of Louisiana during Garrett's tenure as the CPRA. Should he request an ethics opinion on that? And if he should he ask for the ethics opinion from his own lawyer or from the ethics board of the state of Louisiana?
As a businessman, I would probably ask my own lawyer first and then get the opinion of the ethics board. So I would ask my lawyer to go before the ethics board. I think, talking more broadly about campaign finance reform, I think that we need to really work to make Congress more transparent, make campaign finance more transparent. Because right now, with all the different organizations, with all the different money going around, the people need to know where the money's coming from.
I would definitely ask my own lawyer first to get a legal opinion on that, but, you know, I'm not into, like I said, I'm not into getting on other candidates. You know, I'm here to offer myself for service, and, you know, I don't like getting on other candidates and asking questions like this, but, you know, that's the way, I'm just running my own campaign and not gonna hammer on somebody else. Thank you.
I'm going to dodge the question a little bit. Earlier, I asked about the gerrymandering of districts. What you currently have is you have a Republican Party and a Democratic Party who both send their candidates to Washington. And the underlying purpose of those candidates when they arrive appears to me to be to create government money and government contracts going back to their friends in their districts or their other congressmen's districts. So the issue is not whether Mr. Graves is getting money. The problem is money flowing through congressmen to their special interests and their selected friends.
I can't tell you how happy I am that this question's been asked. You know, because what's happened is that over the last several months, this rumor's kind of been under the table and people have been whispering. Folks have been afraid to actually bring it out in the open. So I'm glad this question's been asked. Because the reality is, Senator Clayton, not one single contract has been given to Evans Graves Engineers since I've been there. Zero. As a senator, if you thought that was a situation that was happening, you should be calling FBI, state police, not bringing it up right here in front of BRZ. That's ridiculous. Zero.
Hold your applause coming in, please. Please, Evan.
Well, certainly I would inform myself from my own legal staff as to whether what I was doing is legal. And I don't know what you did. I'm not accusing you of anything. But one thing I would do, I would get the opinion before we got the money. Having said that, I've known this man's father for a long, long time. He's an honorable man and a great engineer. And since we needed the engineering work here, so be it. At least somebody from Louisiana got the money. Not necessarily someone from out of state like our present governor likes to award contracts. So I'm going to pass that, except to say I'm not in the deal.
Very similar to the governor, I'm not involved in that. We take every wise decision to consult my legal representation, but then also my firm commitment to ethics. So regardless of the details of this situation with any candidate up here, my promise to constituents is I'm an ethical person, and I'm going to make sure that in a situation like that, I do my best to maintain my ethical standards and convictions that I pledge to the constituents that I'm asking for me.
Okay. Trey, please standing and give us your question for the other candidates. 30 seconds.
Didn't really come prepared with the question. I wasn't aware of this position or opportunity to do so. But one of my passions, of course, is education, as I stated before. And my question to my fellow candidates is always, what can they do to ensure that parents will have more autonomy and control of their children's education? And what will they do to fight for that?
Thank you. Dan?
I believe that education of the children in the K-12 level is a state's right issue, and that's something that should be done here in the Louisiana legislature, and that the money that we can spend best on that issue is in the early childhood. And I've worked hard to spend money in the state budget on early childhood issues.
I think I'll extrapolate this to Common Core because that's the hot topic in higher K-12 education. Common Core is essentially this president's goals 2000. We saw that federalization or nationalization of education didn't work under that plan. It didn't work under No Child Left Behind. It didn't work under Race to the Top. What makes us think it's going to work now? So I'm all for making sure that the control is at the most local level possible. And making sure that the federal government stays out of the way so that those parents actually do have that choice and can make sure that they can get their kids the good education that they need.
I'm another one that's totally against Common Core. You know, that's the federal government getting involved. You know, I've talked to people throughout the district, and their main concern with education is parental involvement. You know, I've talked to educators, and they said, you know, a lot of kids, in fact, I talked to one last week, and his main thing was, he's a football coach and a teacher, and he stays at school sometimes till 7 o'clock after practice is over at 5:30, because he can't get parents to come pick the kids up. You know, we need to get more parental involvement in education, and that's what I push for.
I come from a family of teachers. All four of my sisters are school teachers. A complaint that they have routinely is that the parents aren't involved. I think anything that we can do as citizens of the community to encourage other parents to get involved in the education of their children is good. I'm not sure the government has a role in it. I think that it's one of those problems that we need to use moral persuasion rather than legislation to get the parents involved. But if you know a parent that's not involved, say something to them about it. Get involved with that child yourself. We need to educate our children.
My wife's a teacher, and we often have the opportunity to discuss education. She's worked in inner city schools, she's worked in private schools, public schools, a lot of very diverse, including inner city schools, very diverse educational experiences. What we need to recognize is that all of our kids learn differently. Our children learn differently. They have different aptitudes, they have different skills. Some folks are going to do their very best going through a technical or trained skill, something that our economy, something that our labor, that our economy needs here in Louisiana in accordance with our economic development projects that are coming on board. We need to tailor the education system to their aptitude, tailor the education system to their full potential, which in many cases is still their technical degrees. Thank you.
I'm for local control of schools, and I'm for anything that the teachers support as helping education, and I'm not going to support anything that the profession feels is wrong. When I was first asked about Common Core, both Obama and General were for it. And I said to myself, well, if those two radicals can be for something, a reasonable fellow like me ought to be for it, so I said I was for it. I've since changed my mind. It's too complicated, nobody understands it, and I think it gets away from local control, so put me down is on the other side.
Thank you. The next question is a 1-minute response time from Jim Kingston.
Gentlemen, for whom will you vote in the U.S. Senate election on November 4th? And if you were not running, for whom would you vote in the election for the 6th district?
Okay, start with Gary.
In the Senate race, I believe that Senator Cassidy has the right ideology to best represent Louisiana. I think that he's the best choice in this election. In regard to our election, I think that what's important is experience. What's important is competency, instead of just voting on someone who potentially is going to be a gambler. There are two people in this race that I actually think bring a lot to the table. One of them is Craig McCullough, who I'll tell you, the guy's got more heart and passion than I think most people at this table combined. He's in this race for the right reasons. Secondly, I think that Senator Plater brings a lot of experience to the table in regard to legislative experience that's relevant in this case. Thank you.
In the senator race, I would vote for Brandon McMorris. The Libertarian Party we've strived really hard to ensure that we have a candidate on the ballot in all the races. Mr. McMorris, Brandon's a very fine fellow. He works really hard. He's an engineer. He's a libertarian. I think a lot of folks in this room, if you took the time to learn more about our party, you would find that, in fact, you're a libertarian. With reference to this race, I would have to say that my allegiance would be with Governor Edwards. When I was a young man, I got in trouble with the law, and Governor Edwards pardoned me and gave me the right to vote. So I would have to say at this point, my allegiance would be with Governor Edwards.
In the Senate race, I would go with Congressman Cassidy. Bill's a fine fella. I've talked to him a lot. And he's done what I consider a good job in Congress. I don't always agree with him on different things, but he speaks his mind. He stands up for what he believes. In this race, I'll wait till the runoff.
Because my software actually has multiple customers in the Senate race, I can't make a statement on that. Actually, multiple people in this race had used my software as well, so that makes it a little awkward for me. But I would say that we need people with private sector experience, and I think there are multiple people in the race that have private sector experience.
Now, what does that have to do with whom you're going to vote?
Being that we have multiple people in that race, disclosing that, I mean, both are customers
of the software, so that makes it difficult. But I'll tell you this, I'm going to vote for one of my customers.
Sounds like a typical Excuse me, clarification, please stand up and identify your customers in both races.
Well, actually, one of my customers in this race dropped out. The customers in the other race are actually Congressman Cassidy and Colonel Rob Maness.
Okay, so you're free to mention this race.
Yeah, I said that, I think there are multiple people in this race that I think would be good. Actually, I would probably be open to vote for many of the other people if I were in the race.
Answer.
Out of respect for Dan's mom and out of respect for him being my senator for the past, how many years? 6 years? 5 years. He's been my senator for the last 5 years, so I would go with Dan.
We finally got it out in Dan.
I guess it kind of segues to where I want to talk about the Senate race. In my view, people seem to vote either their pocketbook or their morals. And I see a lot of people down the bayou who vote their pocketbook. We had some issue there. Paul's pocketbook, his business was involved in, so it made it difficult for him. But I see a lot of people aren't having any trouble with their pocketbook and making their decision. I would vote for Bill Cassidy. I believe he's a good man and that he stands for the things that I stand for. In this race, there are a lot of good candidates, and I appreciate the things that I have heard in this, but I wouldn't want anybody to make a vote for me or out of sympathy, though I appreciate that you said that. I would want you to make a good review of all the folks and then make your own decision on that. I don't tell people how to vote. I don't say that the mayor of Mamou is for me.
I'm just curious as to
How I would vote. Well, then I'm like Craig. I would be making the decision in the runoff, and I plan to be in the race. But these are all good candidates. Make your own decision on that. And it's a private vote. Go ahead and complain about it. I'm not going to answer that part of the
My campaign theme is unity creates responsibilities. And one of the reasons I got into this race is because I was tired of the division that was used to assert certain political agendas. So the basis that I would use for selecting candidates, especially the Senate races, who I believe has the best opportunity to unify us around solutions that I believe will best address our problems that we face. And right now, Congressman Cassidy. In the congressional race here, I'll be that candidate myself. I do see two candidates here that I'm comfortable will be more effective at creating that type of unity around solutions I believe will best address our problems, but I would like to keep that to myself.
You didn't have anywhere else to go? Mary is chairman of the Energy Committee in Washington, in the Senate. Very important to the oil and gas industry, very important to Louisiana, and even though the industry gave all that money to my friend Garrett, I would still support her for that reason. As to who I would support in the second election, that's a tough question for me because I don't know who will make the runoff, and I don't want to hurt anybody's chances by naming anybody.
Next question is going to be candidate on candidate. Edward Edwards, who invited to ask Mr. Rufus Craig a question, and your 30-second rebuttal.
Sorry? I didn't know you were gonna run against me when I pardoned. You think that's nice?
40 years ago, I wasn't aware I was going to run against you.
It's okay, I made other mistakes. I appreciate you. I'm glad I did it because I think everybody's entitled to a second chance. I thought that for a long time, for 8 years. But I'm glad to be with you fellas. We're having a good time here. We're being friendly and kind to each other. And as far as I'm concerned, if any one of you gets elected and I don't, I'll help you be a good congressman.
I believe there's a question in there somewhere. I'd like to follow what Governor Edwards says that I've been to numerous of these candidate forums with these fine fellows. I think they will all of us are qualified for the job. I've been really pleased with the overall positive tone of this campaign. Make sure the most important thing is that you get yourself out on November 4th to vote, get your friends out to vote. The Secretary of State is predicting a 40% turnout. I think that's shameful. We need to do our best as the leaders to encourage people to do their civic duty and vote.
Pardon me?
Will be asked by Trey Thomas. And Trey, you may ask the question of Darth Garrett. Garrett Graves, I'm sorry. Just had somebody come into my family by the name of Darth Garrett. Garrett Graves, you'll answer Trey Thomas's question.
This is a good time to flip the script because on the campaign trail, I'm often asked questions about outreach to different communities within the party as a Republican Party. So what it takes on the abilities and the needs of the Republican Party to outreach to various sectors of our society.
Thank you. This district is an incredibly diverse district. You have the coastal region, you have the river parishes, and you have the Greater Baton Rouge and Capital Region. And when you go into the various 13 parishes in this district, you run into all sorts of folks. And I have gone into every nook and cranny of this district without regard to anything, whether it be economic status, whether it be ethnic background, or anything else. I've asked every person that I've met for their vote. And so that's what I've done. Thank you.
Dan Ryder, you get to ask the question of the answer is 1 minute, and you have a 30-second rebuttal if you don't agree.
I'm sorry, I screwed that up.
You want to start that over? 1 minute. He just asked a question. The answer that Paul gives him is 1 minute, and he has the opportunity for a 30-second rebuttal.
This one's for Paul, but it's for all of you to answer to yourself. However long the answer is, that's the last amount of time you have to talk to your mom. What do you tell her?
Well, I can't speak from experience there. What I can tell you is last year whenever my grandfather passed away, I was with him 24 hours a day basically for 2 months and took care of him. And whenever he passed away, I was actually the only person in our entire family that was with him that night. And it's a moment that I will never forget, and that I can't imagine what you're experiencing right now. I told him, I said, Baba, which is what I called him, I said, I look forward to seeing you again one day. And that's the hope that every believer and every Christian has.
Dan, do you have anything to add? Going down the line, Mr. McCullough, would you please ask a question of our Libertarian friend down there, Rufus?
Few questions in a row. Being a businessman, I would just like to know how you would propose to pay down the debt that we've accrued and not put it on the kids, backs of our kids and grandkids.
That's the single most important question that all of us have to answer. National debt's now $17 trillion. There's no meaningful conversation going on in Congress right now on how to deal with it. I've seen the Republicans have proposed a budget that balances in 10 years. We don't have 10 years. We need to take a serious look at both the entitlement programs and discretionary spending. On the entitlement side, as I said earlier, we spend too much for healthcare in this country. We spend on average of $7,500 for every man, woman, and child in America. Our European counterparts get better quality health care for half that cost. On the issue of discretionary spending, all federal programs need to be on the table. There are none that should be sacrosanct, including the Department of Defense. We need to reduce the amount of spending. We need to reduce the amount of, and we need to seriously have a conversation about what we're going to do long-term about Social Security and Medicare.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, Garrett Graves, you have a question for Edwin Edwards.
Please raise your right hand. I wanted to ask you, there's much turmoil going on right now around the world in regard to terrorism. I think we've seen a decline in U.S. relations with many countries around the world. Could you talk a little bit about your experience in dealing with other countries and national security issues and why that would make you a good congressman?
That's not the role of a freshman congressman. The administration handles that. I was in Congress for 5 years. The world was at peace. We didn't have these problems. I'm going to confess to you, I don't have any expertise in dealing with international organizations and such things. I do say this. Part of the national debt problem, we have a presence in Germany, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, where we haven't been at war at 50, 60 years, and they're not a threat to us. We could save money by taking those people home, and we ought to do that.
Thank you. Governor, just want to remind you, as a member of Congress, annually, bills like foreign operations appropriations, which we fund military and other operations, State Department, USAID, and many other agencies, would be put before you on an annual basis, in addition to participating in decisions for acts of war and other potential defensive or offensive military actions. Thank you. And trade agreements.
Okay. Now we will go to the closing statements by our candidates, and we will start with Edwin Edwards. You have 90 seconds. You got that?
Thank you for this, the last of the forum in this section of the election. I'm happy to be here, and I want to say again that I want to be your congressman. I know this district, I know the state. As you know, I served it. Some people say not very well, some people say well. But you know what? I'm going to take a chance. I'll put it to you very simple. When I was governor, I was here. I answered the telephone, I did my job, I worked with the legislature, the budget was in balance, teachers, bus drivers, school lunch workers, civil service were paid, the universities were kept at a proper level of expenditure, and so was public education. Simply stated, I'm proud of what I did as governor, and I think that's why I got reelected so many times. And I'll say to you this, if you like what I did as governor, if you like the way I acted, then vote for me, because that's the kind of congressman I'm going to be. Hands-on, answer the phone, get the job done, and do what I can to make this district, this state, and this country a little bit better. You can be consoled this way. I can't make it any worse. I be able to make it a little bit better.
And I'm Dr. Trey Thomas. I definitely enjoy being here. Thank you for the invitation to come and share more about myself and my campaign. Again, I please invite you to visit our website, www.drtreythomas.com. There again, you find out more about the 3 E's, education, entrepreneurship, and energy, and my personal connection to each of those. And then also, as I've already mentioned, my campaign theme, unity creates responsibilities. And although Garrett slipped in the football analogy first, that does hit me in my heart as a former LSU football player, because right now, we are heading towards the goal line of prosperity, liberty, and making sure that our Constitution is upheld. Now, there are those who disagree on the way to get there. And what I'm definitely passionate about is those folks who are on the same team that want to make sure we keep heading towards that goal and make sure we're unified to make sure we deliver a great country to our children and children's children. Now, there are those that head towards a different goal line that believe more government planning, more government control can help eliminate problems that we face in our society. But I believe that it's unlocking the potential, unlocking the ability of individuals to do the best for themselves, and those individuals that want to head toward the proper goal line to ensure that liberty and that prosperity is the way we should head. And I invite those to join behind a person who wants to unify us to make sure we get there for our children's sake as well. Again, Dr. Trey Thomas, www.drtreythomas.com. Thank you.
Well, hello, goodbye. I'm State Senator Dan Plater. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. I've tried to lead my life and my public life as straightforward, honest, transparent. I am, what you see is what you get. My door has been open. I have a wide life experience. I've grown up in a small business. I've been a prosecutor. I've been a legislator, and I have a record that you can look at. And you can say, I can depend on which way this guy is going. There's no doubt about where this guy is going. I know who he is. I seek your counsel. I leave my door open. I have walked this district, and a lot of us have, and I think every one of us would agree behind every one of these doors that we've knocked on are good, hard-working people that have come out and said, we want a better America for our children. We want a better Louisiana for our children. And so it's not an issue of who's behind those doors. They're great folks behind those doors. It's a question of leadership, transparency, dependability, reliability. I would tell you, I'm not a fraud. Take a look at my record. I'm not telling you anything new. And let's look at the records of everyone else and make the best decision that you can. Lastly, I do appreciate all the nice things that you've said about my mom. Thank you.
We have a big choice ahead of us. We can either choose to stick with the politics of the past, or we can boldly look to the future. We can vote for people that are going to present innovative ideas that have background in technology, business, or we can stick with the same type of people we've been sending over to Washington for countless years. Do we really want to fight for all Americans, or do we want to fight just for those who can buy their way in? I believe that if we want different responses and if we want different results up in Washington, we've got to send a different type of person up to Washington. And I believe that I am that person. As a businessman, as a conservative that wants to get our government back on track for future generations, I believe that I'm the right choice, and I'm sincerely asking for your vote. Thank you.
My name's Craig McCullough, and like I said before, I'm a small town guy. I grew up in Baker, Louisiana. I opened physical therapy practice in 1984, and I run it for 30 years. I'm a small business owner. You know, there are three things that I'll push hard for in Congress. You know, a balanced budget. We've got to balance the budget. We can't keep kicking the can down the road in Washington. Just continues to keep doing that. Repeal and replace Obamacare. I'm the only one, like I said, in the healthcare field, and I'm dealing with it every day, from veterans problems to just private insurance problems. And religious liberty. I'm watching Christians get persecuted and killed all over the country and all over the world. You know, we need to stop that. We need to stand up to that. You know, and I'm 100% pro-life. I'm a family guy, 100% pro-family, and Second Amendment. Big defender of the Second Amendment. I grew up rabbit hunting with my dad. my kids, grandkids hunt, and that's what we do, and that's where we live. So I appreciate your vote in November. McCulloughforCongress.com. Thank you.
Thank y'all for coming today and having me, give me the opportunity to speak to you. I'm Rufus Gregg, the Libertarian candidate. The Libertarian Party is a grassroots organization. We're trying to create a party that's an alternative to the current two-party system. Our political philosophy is fairly simple. We believe every person has an absolute right to do whatever they want to with their person and their property, with the sole caveat that you can't harm another person or their property by your conduct. I will take that philosophy and apply it to everything that I do as your congressman. I've been in Baton Rouge since 1971. I came here to go to LSU. I graduated from LSU, and I graduated from Southern University's Law Center. I've been a sole practitioner of law for over 30 years at Baton Rouge, and I had the opportunity to represent hundreds of ordinary people. I think we need leaders in this nation now who are willing to represent the ordinary people, not the special interests. I've had a great experience in this campaign, getting to meet these fine men and getting to go to all the candidate forums. The support that I received from my rather quixotic campaign has been outstanding. But what I'd like to close with is that if you're really happy with the way that Republicans and Democrats are conducting the nation's business in Washington, then I say by all means, when you go November the 4th, vote for one. But when you pull that lever, I would like to remind you of Einstein's definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Consider the Libertarian candidate, please. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Garrett Graves. I've never run for office in my life, and to be honest with you, I never had a desire to do it. I had numerous community leaders, business leaders, friends, and others that asked me to run for several months. I told them no, and finally jumped into this race. I jumped in this race because I think South Louisiana is a special place. I think we have incredible assets here. We have abundant energy. We have amazing seafood. We have the top maritime and port industry in the United States. We have a huge petrochemical industry. And our state is looking at a very bright future with nearly $60 billion in economic development projects on the horizon. We have a bright future in Louisiana. But the 13 parishes that are here are very diverse parishes. And you can't represent what you don't know. Over the last 20 years, I've had the opportunity to work in all of these parishes, which is why we have over a dozen parish presidents supporting our campaign. It's why we have numerous sheriffs supporting our campaign. We're the only campaign with that support. It's why we have the largest grassroots business organization in the United States backing our campaign. I've had the chance to work to represent, to fight for you, to fight for South Louisiana. And I've done it with putting my absolute all into it. I've stood up against BP, I've stood up against the federal government, and I've won. I want to do this. This is what I'm good at. I'm not good at everything. I want to do this, and I'd like your support. So you come into our headquarters right now. You're going to see our friends. You're going to see my friends. You're going to see my former coworkers. You're going to see my neighbors. You're going to see the people that I've lived and gotten to know over the last several years. Come join us. Garrett Graves. Thank you.
Thank all of y'all for coming. At this time, I want to remind you that we are Leaders with Vision, and we invite you to join us in this organization in trying to keep the truth on each and every issue. On each and every issue, we try to seek that on a monthly basis, whether it's candidate forums or it's on the issues. We need to be an informed citizen. That way you become an informed voter. Now, may I have a nice round of applause for all the people who have and to our distinguished panel of journalists. Stuart and Nikki, if you'll stand up. These are our timekeepers who's kept the balance. I would like to thank especially the management of WBRZ and Channel 2 and WPTR Channel 19 for providing this public service to our community. And most of all, to all of our audience, both here and viewing audiences at home, for making time to become informed. Ladies and gentlemen, it's up to you now. You have learned with your friends what you have learned today. Share with your friends and family. And above all, get out and vote. Thank you.